You're watching the Battered Fans Network.
Chris, the Herons are back. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 275 of the Better Herons podcast. I am your host, Daniel Granada, and alongside me, as always, is Mr. KBD. How are you doing, sir?
I just want to start off by saying you get an ultimate yellow card for not liking hash browns.
I do like
especially
hash browns.
from Waffle House.
I'm just not picky
absolutely
about what
unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
Man, I'm not going to spend my time on this silliness with you. All right.
Sorry, I derailed it from the jump. My apologies.
All right from the jump. All right. So, obviously, over the last couple of days, we've been talking about what a horrible ending to the season it's been. We had Mike and Brandon on from Inter Miami show, and like we do every offseason, we want to get the perspective from everybody. Now, we thought this would be happening deep into December, but we are now mid-November, and we got some friends over. So, Inter Miami show last Tuesday, and now we have new to the program. This is the first time on the program.
I believe so.
New to the program, yes, 100%. So new to the scene this season, and they've been growing some steam big time. Everybody likes to listen to them. Drive Pink Dialogue. What's going on, guys? How are you guys doing?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having us. I'm always looking forward to talking some Inter Miami, so I appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity, and yeah, I'm ready for it.
Well, hello. This is happening way too soon, guys. I didn't expect this to be the conversation of the topic early in November, but here we are. And I want to just say at the start, I completely agree with Chris. Hash browns are the most important element of any Sunday brunch.
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? I mean, look at the guy I do the show with. I mean, this guy's he's artificial intelligence over here. I don't even know if he
it's really not that serious.
But you know what? Into a charger.
I do agree. You do look like Ronnie 2K. I don't know if you know who Ronnie 2K is, but you do look like Ronnie 2K. He's the guy that does the NBA 2K stuff. Definitely.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah. I think it is. He's filthy rich. So I wanted to get started with the obvious question. We failed. Where do you think we went wrong? Now, we spent 2 hours talking about that on Tuesday with Mike and Brandon from Inter Miami show. Shout out to them.
1 hour and 59 minutes.
And actually, before we get into that, shout out to you guys. I believe this is your first season covering the team. And I love the name because although you guys are new to the scene, you brought in a little retro with the Drive Pink touch to it.
Yes.
How's it been covering this team so far this year? Because for us, it's been a big change from where the people that used to listen to us, and they still follow us, but with the influx of new international views, how's the whole Messi vibe been when you guys record?
I'm sure you know that it's very much, if you criticize Messi, you're going to get some feedback that maybe you don't love. But listen, we were both Miami fans prior to Messi getting there. We remember what it's like to, have Franco Negri be the best player on the field at any point. And so we remember what that's like too. And that certainly informs our perspective. It keeps us grounded and keeps us amazed at everything that we get now. The Supporter Shield is an amazing accomplishment, and having Messi is an amazing thing. So I'm sure you know exactly what the response is, but I think we have sort of the view of what it's like from both sides.
Yeah, and we try to keep it as neutral as we can, despite having Messi on the team, right? There was a time when it was difficult to put 2 wins together, and now here we are breaking the points record. So we really come up in the world, but as Scotty said, we try to keep it grounded. We try to be as neutral and as rational as we can and be less emotional in our analysis. But yeah, it's been an absolute ride. We didn't expect us to do how well we did this regular season, and we expect us to do better in the playoffs, but we didn't. So yeah, overall, it's been a fun year for sure.
And you guys do a really good job with that as far as like balancing the line, because that's one of the things that Danny and I at some points in time we struggle with a little bit, because at some points the people watching and the commentary they get a little deep divey in terms of like Messi talk, right? You can't really waver too heavy one way or the other. You were going to go ahead and say something, Danny? My apologies.
Well, I was going to give them one quick plug. I know Apple TV fails a lot in their pregame content. So I know that the season's over, but just going forward, I don't know if you guys are still planning on doing it, but the only pregame show that I know of, Inter Miami wise, Drive Pink Dialogue. So if you are waiting for the game to start and you want some content, make sure you check them out, because as far as I know, because I know we don't do it, and I don't think anybody else that I know of does it. Apple
Yeah,
sure
they're the only
doesn't do it.
ones.
Yeah, Apple sure doesn't do it. So make sure that you subscribe to Drive Pink Dialogue, because outside of the great stuff that they do, they also are the only ones that do pregame. So make sure that you tune into them.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, it's really the most informed approach, right? I mean, because you can hop onto Apple, but you're just gonna get like a general sort
Apple
of
doesn't do
view.
anything.
Like,
Pregame,
get out of here,
Apple doesn't do
Apple.
anything.
It's
Apple
complete
doesn't do
garbage.
Yeah, and I think it's for us as well on a personal level. It's really good to learn about some of the opposition that we're going to be playing against and just do some research in the background. And I think we're becoming smart in MLS. I can't speak for Scotty, but I definitely am, learning more and more about the other team's tactics and getting a lot more involved in MLS overall in general, and not just focus on Inter Miami. But yeah, that's definitely one of our fun parts of our show for sure.
So let's now get into the nitty gritty. Now I'll start with Scotty. Scotty, the season ended way too early. Were you Tata out or in before the playoffs by any chance?
I felt like the playoffs were going to be determinant on how I felt about Tata, because certainly he's done a lot of good things during the regular season. And I want to give him credit for the things he does. And I think even things that a lot of fans don't really appreciate. Our set piece defense got a lot better. I think he's done a good job of bringing some of the young players in ways that maybe we didn't think they would, specifically Noah Allen, but even David Ruiz and Kramaski have gotten more opportunities than I thought they might under Tata. So he's done a lot of good things, but at the end of the day, the Leagues Cup wasn't good. And I think that specific loss to Columbus was on Tata Martino. I thought that loss in Monterrey was on Tata Martino. So it was, can he show up in the biggest games, and can he be a difference maker in the biggest games? So when I went into the playoffs, I was thinking, I'm undecided on this.
Okay.
And I don't feel much better about it right now.
Okay. Is it all right? I went into it thinking Tata in. And the way, because I said it on the show all the time. I said, if we don't win the MLS Cup, I feel like you can't say the season's a failure, because as the saying goes, any given Sunday, right? Like a one game, like anything can happen, red card, penalty, whatever. But the fact that we went and we lost 2 out of 3 in a series, I was like, okay, we can have the conversation, because now I am not 100% Tata in. I am like 51% Tata in. So it dropped drastically.
I think that's my point, is I wanted to see that he could do it. And so again, if you make it to the final and Olivier Giroud has a hat trick, or the semifinal and Cucho went crazy or whatever, like I can forgive that. But I just wanted to see that he could show up in big games, and it didn't
2 out
feel
of
like
3.
we got that. Yeah.
2 out of 3. And so how do you feel, Saul?
So I'm always of the mind that going against the coach is, during the season at least, back the coach, back the team. I think a lot of fans are very reactionary when results don't go their way. So I'm always backing the coach through and through. For me, the yardstick of measurement was when Tata Martino had the responsibility to affect games and actually make a difference in games. What was he able to do with that? Did he actually influence games when it was needed the most? And Scotty's already mentioned Monterrey, the Columbus game in the Leagues Cup, which was an absolute disaster. I think the worst game for Tata Martino, barring the playoffs. And then
really, even though the first 60 minutes it seemed like he outcoached Nancy.
You know why? For me, I think it was the most frustrating game to watch in terms of
that I'll give you
perspective. Yeah. And I still remember how much I was fuming at my screen when not a single substitution was made, and Wilfred Nancy's putting on 3 players at halftime, and I'm like, okay, this is absurd. So I think regular season wise, he coached really well when there was a need for him to step up in terms of bringing in the youth, and when Messi was injured, he did a really good job. But when it really mattered in the playoffs, when it was a do or die game, when it was knockouts, I think he failed, man, and he failed quite badly. So I am less than 51%, Danny. I am almost on the fence of Tata out right now, but we don't want to go on that rant just yet. I think we'll warm up a little bit more before we do that.
Yeah, we'll get there for sure.
Can I ask you two a question? Because I think this will inform sort of a lot of the rest of this conversation. What is the ambition for this club? What is the standard that this club wants to be at in this sort of concealed Messi era while he's here and while we have all these great players? What should be the expectation? Because where you set that line is how you're going to judge Tata Martino, is how you're going to judge the 2024 season, is how you're going to set up how and what we need to do in this offseason. So I want to get your guys' opinion on that.
Well, and I let me just start it off here because Miami King here is commenting, Columbus is out as well. Nobody talked about Nancy out, right? I think the issue is that there's no sort of expectation that Nancy would have that's anywhere remotely close to what Tata or Messi is expected to complete, right? I mean, I don't think the thing is, Scotty, I don't think that there's any other way to like answer that question without really stating that it's like the ultimate success, right? Not just here,
Yeah.
but like internationally in every way, shape, or form. Like we're talking about playing some of the best clubs. We're talking about internationally being recognized and making millions of dollars all around the world, financially. I think the issue is that there's such a high expectation that getting knocked out in the first round, it's kind of sad, to be perfectly honest. Like you brought up a perfect point, right? It's hard to sort of separate the normalcy, the regular season, and then the playoffs. Playoffs, we didn't even have a cup of coffee in the playoffs. Like we got one win, two losses against the team that literally had our number, and then to top it off, in every other game that mattered, he kind of pooped the bed. You know what I mean? So it's like it's hard to be able to sit here and say the ultimate thing is to be the best of the best, but at the same time, like the way that we've been performing this year is like really kind of like unbelievably unacceptable. I mean, I said a lot of words, Danny. I don't know if I said a lot of things. What's your opinion on that?
The bar that Scotty's talking about, I think it is MLS Cup, right? Because that's at least in this league, that's the main goal, right? That's the one that puts the star on top of the crest. Although I think that is the goal, like I said, I did not think that it needed to be achieved this year for it to be a success for Tata, because it was a single elimination. I think where the biggest failure was the way we kind of bowed out of the playoffs, because you can't lose 2 out of 3 to a bad team. And I know that you can't say they're a bad team when they beat us, but I really do think that the way we lost is what's really killing me. And not so much the Monterrey game. I felt like Monterrey was the superior team, and we were playing in Monterrey. The first game that we played was, I think Messi didn't play in the first game here at home, and we should have won that game if David Ruiz doesn't get that red card. And that can't be on Tata, because, I mean, I felt like the tactics were working in our favor. I felt like we were controlling that game. We were winning. And that was the 65th, 70th minute when David Ruiz got that red card. I understand that maybe, okay, Tata's got to figure out how to keep that lead the last 20 minutes. But again, Monterrey was a superior team, in my opinion. And without Messi, I felt like, man, Tata did almost enough to win that game without the best player in the world. And David Ruiz kind of pooped the bed for us. In Monterrey, yeah, maybe we should have looked better. There's no reason to ever have 0 subs in 90 minutes. I think that was ridiculous. Awful. But that to me, that wasn't like, okay, Tata's really killing me here. I was like, all right. And then that Columbus game in Leagues Cup, I could see that also. But I also look at it as those first 60 minutes, I thought that he dominated. And there was a Diego Gomez missed goal that could have put us up an extra goal. And I think that that game completely turns on its head if we score that goal. But Diego Gomez didn't convert. Same way he didn't convert in the second game of the Atlanta game in Atlanta, with Messi gets Jordi with the through ball, Jordi with the low cross. If Diego Gomez doesn't fall asleep and catches up to that ball and puts it in the back of the net, we might win that game also. Tata did enough sometimes to put us in a position to win. Our players just didn't execute.
Okay, but like you two have different answers to the question I asked, which is what is the ambition? Whereas Chris says it should be the highest everything. And that, in my head, means winning every trophy. And what you're saying is win MLS Cup, which is winning the most prestigious U.S. trophy, right? But there's a gap there. And so if you want to say it's win the MLS Cup, you can talk about the little moments that cost us in the playoffs. But if you're talking about winning every trophy, you have to talk about more than just individual moments or individual decisions. It's the consistent good or bad decision-making that costs us results over the course of multiple tournaments. And maybe Tata Martino is just not a tournament coach.
But,
and so
but isn't that consistent coaching? Isn't that kind of lend itself to the supporter shield though?
Depends, because if you're talking about coaching well in big games, maybe he's just not the type of guy that can make those tiny adjustments that don't matter as much over the course.
But he won the
of a
biggest
season.
regular season
Yeah,
game, though. That Columbus game was the biggest regular season game, and they won that game.
True, but they also lost at Cincinnati. I mean, they had some bad losses along the way. And listen, I'm not going to complain about his regular season. It was he broke the points record. Don't try to figure out that side. But I guess this is the question: is your standard really good, or is your standard the best that has ever been seen in this country? And so,
I'm assuming for you, as much like Chris, it's the best we've ever seen in this country, because I never went into it that way. I just want us to win trophies. I thought we should have won at least 2 this year. And if you give me 2 every year that he's here, obviously I want MLS Cup to be one of them. I'm okay with that. I don't need the Supporter Shield. I want international trophies, but if we don't get them, that's fine. This is a league of parity. We're not going to dominate. We're not going to get the way Real Madrid and Man City just win everything in a calendar year. In a league of parity, it's not as common. Give me 2 trophies a year, and I take it as a success.
I agree with you. I just think that actually has to come from the club. Like, what does the club want to be? We as fans can want the best, of course. As fans, we should want to win every trophy and then be happy with anything that's sort of in that successful range. But what does the club want to be?
Well, go ahead, Sor.
I think you have to look at it this way, right? We as Inter Miami fans are really spoiled because we've got a brilliant roster, probably the best, most deep roster that MLS has ever seen, right? So our expectations are already high up, but then the club has also set those expectations by constantly saying in media that, yes, we want to go for all 4 trophies available to us. So that as fans, we start looking at it as, okay, if this is the ambition, then you need to prove it. And I remember talking to Scotty about this at the start of the season as well. When you look at how well the roster has been constructed for a coach, whether it's Tata Martino, whether it's somebody else, you have to put the right players on the pitch, and then the talent can show up and the quality does rise up. And honestly, I think us 4 sitting here together could potentially get Inter Miami into the playoffs. We may not get the points record and all of that, but I think 9 out of 10 times we will pick the right starting 11 and they will get the result out. Now, I will say, I don't blame Tata Martino for the loss against Atlanta in that last game. I think tactics there were not to blame. But when I look at the larger picture, when it's mattered the most, when the coach has needed to step in and actually make a difference in games, Tata has just not been able to do that. And for me, that has been the biggest gripe with him. He has been inconsistent, honestly. And with this level of talent that you have on your roster, you have to set up a consistent, stable squad. And we just haven't found the chemistry, whether that's due to his stubbornness, whether that's due to his tactics. That's, I think, up to debate. But
So I have a question for you. Game 1, did you think that they had a good game plan game 1?
I think we played really, really well game 1. Like, we could have easily beat Atlanta by 4 or 5 goals there. The problem was that Brad Guzan had the best game of his life and basically saved everything. So game 1, we should have definitely won that game. And I was very surprised at how locked in and how sharp and concentrated every single player looked on that field. Because for me, I think the game 1 was probably the best I've seen this team play in a very, very long time.
You don't think game 3 went very similar? I understand defensively, obviously there were lapses with the Toto Avila's 3rd goal, and then the mix-up between Toto Avilas and David Martinez for that 1st goal, leaving that guy unmarked. I understand defensively, but in the attack, I felt like we had almost as many chances as we had the 1st game.
No, I didn't see it that way. I think attackingly, we struggled to actually get in front of goal. Like, as many goal-scoring opportunities we had in that 1st game, I don't think we had in the 3rd game. The 3rd game was good. We did build ourselves into attack well, but Luis Suarez did not have a great game. Jordi Alba did not have a great game. I think individually, we just lacked that sharpness and the level of performance that we had in that 1st game. And again, I won't blame Tata Martino for that 3rd game as much, because I think the players let themselves down and the mindset and the mentality just didn't seem to be there, which again comes down to how well the coaching team prepares your players, right?
Well, it's a weird thing because, like, one of my gripes game 3 was starting Benjamin Kremaski when there were other players that probably could have given us a better edge, especially on the offensive side of the ball, like Gressel, right? I mean, we lost a big player halfway in game 2 with Yannick Bright. And to fill those shoes in, on top of that, lose Sergio Busquets, who happens to be like the football version of the quarterback on this team. I mean, we're taking 2 huge losses, and you're going to put a player like Benjamin Kremaki, who doesn't have as much class in terms of like offensively. And then on top of that, you're going to have Matias Rojas, who's been hot and cold recently, come on the pitch. So like, I actually felt like Tata did worse managing in terms of the starting lineup in game 3 than he did in any other game throughout the series.
You know, it was clear to me through all 3 games that Tata was deathly afraid of getting hit on the counter. And he was right to be. This is how Atlanta got us in the regular season. It's how they got us here in the postseason, aside from maybe a Pedro Amador goal to Saba Lopchenitze. But that's how they were going to attack us. He was right to be afraid of it. And once you lose Yannick Bright, it's really tough to defend that well. And Inter Miami's had that problem without Bright in the lineup all season. So when you're talking about Kremaski versus Gressel, like you can see that's why he was thinking to put Kremaski, in the athleticism and the tracking the runners. So, you know, you say this a lot, Danny. Tata knows more than we'll ever, forget, or the opposite of that. But
yeah, he knows more than I've ever forgotten. No, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
He knows. Don't even worry about it.
He's forgotten more than I'll ever know. And so as long as I can understand why he's doing it, I can give him the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, he's probably making a better decision than I would make if I disagree, as long as I can understand it. It's weird that Julian Gressel didn't play. I have a lot of gripes with Tata that I don't really understand, but that one feels explainable.
Where would you? Oh, okay. I was going to ask you, where would you put him?
He didn't play a single minute. Like, he didn't play a single minute in that playoff series, which doesn't make any sense to me, because Gressel was Tata's favorite player in the first half of the season, and
that was one of the biggest things throughout the entire fan base, is that everybody thought that like Gressel and Tata had like this secret blood handshake, where like all of a sudden you have like Gressel's never getting out of the starting lineup. Now,
I think Yannick Bright was the reason, though. He took that midfield spot that they were given to Julian Gressel before the summer.
Well, Federico Redondo, man.
Well,
once you have, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, well, 2 things happened. You had Federico Redondo, that he came back from injury, and then on top of that, Messi came back from the break, because Gressel was shining on the right wing. You throw him in the midfield, and he's a ghost.
Yeah, but I'm just checking now. I mean, Gressel started every game aside from that game in Columbus that we won 3-2. He started every game down the stretch and then just didn't play in the playoffs.
But we weren't healthy just about the entire season. I remember everybody was healthy in training, like right before the playoffs. And that's when I was like, oh my God, finally, right in time for the playoffs, right in time to get knocked out in the first round. It's amazing. And then it lasted 1 game. Not even, because Busquets didn't play the first game.
Yeah.
So, all right. So,
well, but I want to sort of, while we're still on, I guess, jump back on the topic, to sort of bring this full circle to Scotty's question, right? How you and I, Danny, have sort of, I guess, different responses. It's weird, though, because, again, it's like Sor brought up, this team set the expectations of saying, we want everything. We want to be international. We want to be top 5 logos and clubs in the entire world. But they set those expectations.
LAFC says that. LA Galaxy say that. NYCFC said.
Who really had the potential to do that?
Can I offer you guys a potential line that makes sense to me, at least?
Go for it.
When Inter Miami is looking forward, they should agree with Chris. They should want to win every trophy, every game, be everything. But when you're looking back on what's already happened, I think it's totally fair to say 2 trophies. But as we get into this offseason conversation, what Inter Miami needs to add, they should be thinking about it in mind. Absolutely. We want to win 4 trophies. We want to be competitive in the Club World Cup, right? And whether they think all of those things are realistic, that should be their aim when building the roster. That should be their aim when trying to prepare for this season. And then at the end of the season, if we say 2 trophies is good, we're happy with that. But it feels like the ambition going forward should always be to try and win everything.
But that's where the beauty of parity and salary cap comes into play, because you're like, okay, let me build the team that I think can win the 4 trophies. And then you're like, oh, wait,
you have
money.
You got
no money.
$5.
I got
and
money,
a
but I can't
Chick-fil-A
spend
gift
it.
card you can give somebody.
Do you think that the salary cap actually held back Inter Miami this season in a way that's completely preventable? Because aside from maybe getting a second center back at some point that you would have spent more on, they got a right back they would have liked. They got a Matías Rojas, who should have been making way more money. They got Luis Suarez and Jordi Alba way under what their actual value is. In fact, they got a lot of guys under their actual value. So they were actually able to build a really impressive roster for what they have.
That's a great question, Scott.
I agree. I think the only place that they couldn't is, like you said, center back. And that's why in the MLS, you'll never find the three phases, whether attack, midfield, and the back line. You're never going to have all-stars or top flight players in all three phases because the salary cap prevents it. And we chose to choose it in the top two, which makes sense. Yeah. Defensively, I know it looked horrible, and I'm sure that you guys want us to improve defensively also. But, and I've said it a bunch of times this week, we allowed 49 goals this year. There were 3 teams that allowed 48, just about the same as us. There were only 5 teams in the entire league that allowed less than that. So for the most part, outside of those 5 teams, nobody can play defense in this league.
We actually were even better than that, because if you take out the 6 goals against Cincinnati and the 4 goals against
the Red Bull, that's 10 goals.
Yeah, on average, or the median numbers, quite good.
So imagine.
And that's considering with center backs that drop like flies, and we still were able to, like, after Freire got injured, it's like, oh, well, let's go get this guy, David Martinez, bring him in for a happy meal, right? Like, he starts and you covered it.
Let me go back to you guys. I feel like this team is as talented as it could ever be. Maybe they could inch a little bit more talent into this roster if they signed like a Neymar, but you're not going to be able to drastically improve this roster going forward, as I think we agree. And if that wasn't good enough for what they want to do, and I think we all agree this year wasn't good enough, how do you get more out of a similarly talented roster? Because yes, you can take a center back out, put a new center back in. Maybe you replace Cello. Maybe you sign a left winger that's a little bit more dynamic or whatever.
I'll tell you how. You avoid Brad Guzan.
Well,
if it's not for Brad Guzan, we win that series.
I'll give you somewhat of a realistic, I guess, answer is get rid of Kristoff. Kristoff is like one of the most highest paid. What do you mean? No.
Well, I'm saying it's going to happen anyway.
It is. I mean, that's going to free up some money, though.
No, I understand. You go get another center back. You feel better about that, but who knows how healthy they'll be, right? David Martinez is talented, but isn't Emerson.
And he's only with us until next summer.
Right. So you can get another center back. You can get another right. Like, you can do marginal things. You can create more balance in the midfield, but you're not going to drastically elevate the talent level. So to me, it feels like the only way to get a drastic improvement out of this roster is to actually change the coach. And I think that might be why I feel the most Tata Martino out. Because you got to get more out of this roster than what you got this year, especially in the big tournaments.
Can I give a little bit more justification to your answer, Scotty? So if we actually look at this roster, right, the 25, 30-man roster that we built, on paper, do you think this roster is capable of competing on multiple fronts? And I'm not saying win everything, but compete at least for every single trophy that's out there. Get to the semifinals of the League's Cup. Get to the finals of the CONCACAF. Get to the MLS Cup final against the West. Like, actually go out there and compete on a higher footing than what we've done. Like, do you think that would have been a reasonable expectation as a fan base, right? Yeah. So if we have the talent on paper, and we've seen some of these players perform at that level, what's missing? And for me, it's a very simple answer. At no point during the entire season did I feel that Tata Martino knew what his best 11 was. At no point during the season did it feel like, okay, injuries happen, issues happen, but it didn't feel like he knew what his stable, balanced structure was. What did he want to do with the team that he has at his disposal? How is he going to set it up? And I think balance is the word that I've time and time come back at. Yes, you have multiple quality players, but you look at a team like PSG, right? They had Neymar, Messi, Mbappe, all the best forwards in the world, and they weren't able to win the Champions League with them. That's because the team is not balanced enough. So you may have all the talent in the world, but you have to put the pieces on the board properly to be able to exactly no stable formation. I can name like 5 different formations that we tried the entire season at multiple points during the entire season. There's no consistency. So when you don't tell your players that this is what I want you to do, these are your roles, right? Noah Allen suddenly emerged out of the blue in the middle of the season, which was fantastic. All of us loved it. But there didn't seem like an actual plan to bring him into the fold. Is he going to play left back moving forward? Is he actually going to play center back moving forward? What's the plan there?
But doesn't that kind of lend itself to the fact that we were so injured? Because Noah Allen was playing left center back when David Martinez was out. He played that first game against Atlanta when Busquets was out. And then Yannick Bright is covering for Busquets, and that ended up working out, and he ended up staying. We've had so many injuries. I think that his mindset, he said at the beginning of the year, he wanted to play with 5 in the back. And towards the end of the year, it looked like he was finally getting there. But it never happened. Like, I don't think at any point that we see the best 11 on the pitch at one time. Maybe the last game of the season against New England. But I think that was the only time, because there was always something going on as far as injury.
Yeah, but I also feel like there's enough permutations and combinations that you can make with these set of players that you have that would ensure that the first starting 11 and the second starting 11 plays a similar style, has the same setup, is as balanced as possible. And I just think Tata Martino was not able to figure out what his most balanced 11 is. And I'm not even saying what his best 11 is, what his most balanced 11 is. So, for instance, you realize very early on that this team is really poor in defensive transitions, and you need a defensive midfielder in there. How long did it take Tata Martino to figure out that Yannick Bright was actually the most important player in this team to stop that from happening? If you need to fill up your midfield with more bodies, that's what you do. You don't go out and try and outscore opponents, because you're going to get hit on the counter and it's not going to work out well. So, yeah, I just feel like there wasn't enough balance.
Listen, I mean, Danny, I don't know about you, but like Sora and Scotty, they're cooking here. Like, these guys are fucking brains. And if anybody has gotten me close to the Tata out thing, because you guys are like secretly like mind-blowing manifesting this without even saying it, really. Like, and you guys bring up a lot of valid points.
And we've had this conversation separately as well, and we've discussed this. We don't think Tata Martino is going to go. And that's fine. That's understandable. I can see both sides of the argument. Yeah. But there has to be a certain level of accountability when it comes to the coaching. Like, you can't just say that injuries were the only reason we lost. This roster is deep enough to be able to deal with that level of injuries. Even when I feel like when we were injured, we probably played the best football that we played the entire season. So when you have all the players available to you, why did we have the certain issues that we did? You know?
All right, I have a question. So going back to the series against Atlanta, so do you put that solely on Tata?
No, I don't put it on Tata. Honestly, I thought my final prescription of the last 2 games, and especially the last game, is our best players didn't play as the best players. And if Brad Guzan's the best player on the field and Jamal Tiare is the second best player on the field, on a field that has Luis Suarez and Lionel Messi and Jordi Alba, that's...
I'm sorry, who was the second best?
Tiare, the striker for Atlanta, who had 2 goals in the third game. You needed your best players to play like the best players. And, you know, you mentioned in this league, it's very imbalanced rosters from top to bottom. And you need your stars to be stars in the biggest games. And ultimately, I thought in game 2 and especially in game 3, our best players didn't play that well.
So you don't do... I thought Messi was the second best player on the pitch. And
I thought Messi was good. I thought Messi was good.
A lot of people are saying he didn't show up. I know he didn't score, right? And that's ultimately what you look for. Or actually, he did score the header, but they thought that he didn't carry us, right? Because that's ultimately what people look at. Is like, did we win? No, Messi didn't do enough. And I felt like he played a good game. In that second game, like I brought up that play with Diego Gomez, he tracked back to the midfield to get the ball. He found Jordi Alba with the through ball. Like, he was creating for others. And he can't, unfortunately, do it all. I think other people need to step up also, but I thought that he had a good I thought he wasn't as bad as people are saying, because I thought that he played the best he could, considering what's wrong with Mr. Krabs?
I thought Messi played well.
This is the second time that he's mentioned this comment.
I don't know what that's about. All right, go ahead, Scotty.
I thought Messi played well. I thought my comment was more directed towards Luis Suarez and Jordi Alba, if I'm being honest. And then obviously Busquets wasn't available. Messi, I think it's fair to say this is the best player on the planet, and in an important do-or-die game, you should want him to be the best player on the field. And I think that's a fair thing to say.
Yeah.
I agree he played well, and I think if Inter Miami wins, we have no problems with how Messi played. Like that only comes because we lost. But again, when I say the best players let us down, I think I'm mostly speaking about Jordi Alba. I'm mostly speaking about Luis Suarez. And I thought some of our other veterans didn't have great games. Matias Rojas was fine. I know he got the goal, but he didn't do a ton elsewhere. Drake Callender didn't have that one big save that could have changed the whole series. I'm not blaming him on any particular goal, but if he had that one big moment, it could have changed everything. David Martinez in game 3, I thought another veteran had some really poor individual mistakes. So it just felt like our veterans and our stars didn't show up when we needed them to, which is how I sort of prescribed it.
Just real quick, before we keep going, I want to make sure that I know a lot of people have joined us since we originally introduced you guys. If you just joining the show, Drive Pink Dialogue, they new this season, but they're awesome. They do pre-games before the games, and I just want to make sure I put that out there just in case anybody just got in here midway through the show. Also, we do this every off season. Chris and I usually try to have as many Miami content creators on so we can talk to them about what they're thinking and kind of just spread the word because there's a lot of people out here creating stuff. We reached out to Peter Brown. We'll hope we can get him on at some point. We reached out to the Hair on Heads. We reached out to a bunch of people. So hopefully we can get everybody on and kind of pick everybody's brains. All right. So failure, I think just across the board, we all agree this is a failure. Now we look at the offseason. I know the name Neymar came up at some point. I think Scotty brought it up. Do you think that would really make this team better? Because I feel like we're having a difficult time defending with 9. Now we're going to defend with 8. I mean, if you want to count the keeper as a defender.
To me, our biggest problem all season was our midfield balance. I didn't think we had enough defensive bite. And so while I know the center backs get a ton of blame, I think if you're expecting your center backs to be incredibly efficient in one-on-one situations over game after game after game after game, you're asking a lot. And so when we think about the Manchester Cities of the world, those guys can do it. But at this level, it feels very difficult to ask center backs to consistently defend in transition one-on-one every game in and game out. So you need to help them in the midfield. That's why I thought Yannick Bright was such an impactful player. To me, it's more about setting the midfield balance more efficiently so you have a little bit more defensive bite. And you don't need to spend a ton of resources to do that, which is why I think if you do want to go out and spend big on another attacker, you can do that if that's sort of aligned with some of your other goals.
My thing about Neymar is that, I mean, I know that Diego Gomez technically isn't a left winger, but that's where we were playing him. And was a left winger that gave space to Jordi Alba to operate up top, but he would also track back, and he was basically a number 8 playing left wing. If you bring Neymar up there, that midfield that you're talking about, even though Gomez was a left winger, Gomez was playing in the midfield, and all of a sudden that midfield that you said wasn't doing much defensively loses even more bite because Neymar's not tracking back to defend.
Yeah, I'll say, and Sora will definitely back me up on this. One of our biggest things was I thought we needed to play a left winger more often. I thought the disappearance of Robert Taylor was a shame. And I get that it may make Jordi Alba a better player on the left as a left back down that left wing, give him more space. But I actually think it makes Messi a worse player because it allows defenses to tighten up in the middle of the field. I think adding a left winger that is actually a left winger is really important.
And I think this is one thing that Scotty and I may disagree on, because what Scotty very diplomatically mentioned is that he would like to see Neymar on this team. Is that correct, Scotty? Am I right in that assessment? Would you be interested?
Be very fun. Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm in it for the vibes.
Sure.
Yes, I'm in it for the fun.
Okay.
I'm on the other side of the spectrum, and I actually disagree with him. I will caveat by saying if Neymar joins into Miami, he's automatically the second best player in the MLS after Lionel Messi, for sure. The problem is he's probably going to be the second best player for 2 or 3 games, and then he's going to get injured. His injury record is absolutely atrocious, and I don't think this Inter Miami team needs another superstar player who's not even going to play half the games this season, and our money is better invested elsewhere. I think there are other areas on the pitch that we need to address, that we need to focus on. I would love to get a superstar defender. I know that's not a very MLS thing, and we don't get that level of quality in the defense, but I would love to see one. I am off the advocacy that defense wins games, especially in the playoffs. Defense is where it's at. So that's where you need to invest. And Neymar is going to be really good. It's going to be another shiny object that we'll really appreciate having. But I don't even know how many games he can play. I haven't seen him play in, a year and a half now. So is he even the same player? So many questions, right?
That we don't know. I know he's only played a handful of games, and that's why they're ready to buy him out. And he's going to be a free agent come December. But you know what? It's funny. I agree with both of you because I think it would be fun as heck to watch him. But when I try to think logically, it's probably not going to make us better because defensively, I think we're going to suffer even more than we did this year.
Can I spend 30 seconds mapping this out in my head? Because
45.
Okay. Well, then I'll use the first 15 for Neymar.
All right.
Messi missed 20 games last year and he played 25. If that's what Neymar gives you, exactly what Messi gave you this year, I would be very happy with that. And that's missing half the season. So you're talking about just adding another Messi.
I don't think Neymar would give you that much, though.
Maybe. I mean, he would have to go through the physical. Okay. If you take Kristoff off the roster and you take Fred off the roster, you have now money for two really good defenders. If you then go out and sign another left winger with the money you're getting or taking off the table from Diego Gomez, you now have your left winger. And then if you sign a very cheap defensive midfielder, and I keep using the name Dixon Arroyo because we've had him recently. We know who he is. Just a veteran defensive midfielder that can compete with Yannick Bright or replace him if he's injured or whatever. I think you've solved a lot of the issues on this team without using any of the overarching roster like designations that might become available, whether it's a fourth DP, whether it's replacing Diego Gomez as U22. Like, I still think you're going to get one big chunk of money or roster resource in order to get one big player without having to sacrifice those other needs you have. Two center backs, maybe a right back, a defensive midfielder. So if you're talking about getting one big player, where do you want that to be? That's a fun question, I think.
But it's weird. We have like 100 midfielders. Like we have David Ruiz, we have Kermaski. We have Facundo Farias, who at some point was playing midfielder, but then he played out wing. There's who else? Is Matias Rojas sticking around this year, Danny? I'm not sure if he
has an option.
Yeah.
I think he'll be here next year. I was going to ask Scotty and Sora about Cello because I'm a Cello fan. I don't know how they feel about Cello.
Oof.
Don't get us started on that. I will say at the start of the season, I very early and prematurely proclaimed him to be the best right back in the league. And that opinion has truly very, very quickly turned sour. And that's probably one of my worst takes I've had the entire season. Cello's decent, man. I use the word steady.
I agree.
So Cello's good. He's stable. He's consistent. He shows exactly what he shows every single game. Shows up, plays decent, does his job, and goes home.
You know what you're gonna get from him.
Exactly. You're gonna you know what you get from him, which is not a lot, but you get exactly what you paid for, right? He will defend fine, maybe have that one-off offensive involvement, but that's it. Not too bad, not too great. But then you see someone like Ian Frey come in and it automatically just shows you the gulf in quality because I thought 100%. Ian Frey was a much better right back. I think he played much better right back than he played center back. But he was really good.
We were yelling for that here.
Yeah. Offensively, amazing. Defensively, very solid. And that's when you start to question yourself. You're like, okay, if there's an academy player who's playing better than Cello, does he deserve to start over Cello? And for me, I think the more and more we saw that over the entire season, I thought that right back position needed a bit more X factor and quality that Cello doesn't have. So for me, we need to upgrade him, but it is what it is. You're right. He's very steady. He gives you what he gives you.
There's another factor, and that's that if we keep him, we'll probably have to buy him. So all of a sudden, instead of him costing $400,000 against the cap, he's costing $750,000, $800,000 against the cap. And that, I think you might need, considering how well Inter Miami can recruit players, you might need a little more out of that right back spot. So to me, I would be okay with having him back if he was at the same level against the cap. But considering that charge is going to go up, I think we can find someone better.
It's not going to make the value worth it. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, Danny.
And Soccer Daddy's here saying Cello offense equals 0. When we got him, I felt like Yedlin progress the ball up the pitch a little more. But I felt like he lacked defensively, and I felt like that's why I like Cello, because I felt like he gave us defensively what we lacked with Yedlin. Like, what are we building up the right side? We build up the left side mostly. That's Jordi Alba is the one that builds up the pitch for us. I'm not worried about Cello in the attack as much as some other people are.
But I think that's problematic for anyone that plays on the right side behind the guy with the number 10 named Messi. Like, you put Cello back there, he's not going to go and take up space up there, right? Gressel was thrown at right mid at some point. He wasn't able to be effective in any way, shape, or form unless Messi was like far in the middle of the pitch. Other than that, I mean, everybody sort of becomes a ghost in that area.
I think Cello finds opportunities for overlapping runs. He just doesn't do anything with them.
Can I go back to this question I had at the beginning about the ambition of this team? Do you want to be a team that runs it back with mostly the same team that didn't get it done, or do you want to go out and get the very best right back possible? I think they can go out and get a better right back, and then, chemistry issues, all of that, it'll take some time to develop. But if you're talking about having the highest level of ambition that Inter Miami could possibly have, I think that means going to get an upgrade at right back. But if you're okay, winning the Supporter Shield and crashing out of the tournaments, you can keep Cello Wigan.
Yeah, I mean, and Mike V has a question here. I don't know if you guys have the Leagues Cup team, but Mike V's asking here, why was the team that won Leagues Cup better than this team with less? Why was that team not only fun to watch, but actually wanted to win? It's a serious question by Mike V, and I mean, I don't see anything wrong with what he's asking. I mean, who was it that was starting at right back at that point? It was Wagon, no?
Last year, it was Yedlin.
Oh, no, it was Yedlin. That's right.
Yeah, we got Cello this year. We got him after. Yeah, we sent Yedlin packing after we clean sheeted Orlando 5-0, and that was his congratulations. Thank you for contributing. Go off to Ohio. So
honestly, if we think about it, is Cello better than Yedlin? Like,
defensively,
I
think
you're about to get a lot of responses in the chat. I mean, chat, is he better, Yedlin, or?
I'm on the fence about it, so I'd love to know what the chat thinks. So,
I would love to what the chat thinks. I say yes for what we needed defensively. I think yes.
I agree too, but one of the reasons they got rid of Yedlin was because he cost too much against the cap, and so again, we're talking about Cello costing a lot more. It becomes sort of an even argument again, right?
How do you feel about Robert Taylor? He's played right back in the past. How do you feel about that random switch to right back?
I don't think it was ever good.
No, defensively, it's atrocious.
Yeah.
If he can stay on this roster, I'll play him in goal, man. I don't want to lose Robert Taylor. I'm going to have an absolute fit when Robert Taylor leaves.
Oh my God, Chris, you found your soulmate.
Yes, absolutely. Are you kidding me? I would love that. And Jack Carr is mentioning Cello better than Yedlin, and then Kata is saying better than current Yedlin. Listen, I heard Yedlin's name at least like 15 times in the last game that he played. Like, talking to Justin in the Battered MLS podcast that we did, he mentioned how great Yedlin played. And that's like one of the things that everybody here in the fan base kind of looked at and said, I hope he doesn't do too great in Cincinnati. And they love him over there.
But the standard is different, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I get it.
Look, Justin from Cincy Soccer Talk constantly tells us that they won the Supporter Shield last year, and that's like the top for them. They don't care about the MLS Cup. So people in Ohio are weird. Like, if that's your standard, can you really take what he's saying seriously?
Yeah.
All right. So,
how about Calendar? I want to get their opinion on Calendar. Okay. Right? I mean, people were mentioning here in the chat about Calendar, whether Calendar in, Calendar out. And I know that you spoke something a little bit about that, Scotty, mentioning about Calendar that he didn't have that like one save or whatnot. I don't know, man. It's weird because like Calendar, if everybody wants to remember like his most positive time with us, it was in the Leagues Cup run. How have you guys sort of finished the season off, and what's your sort of like idea of how Calendar's been and whether it's worth keeping him around or not?
Go on, Scotty. Take that one first.
I like Calendar a lot. I would be very happy if he was our goalkeeper next year. I think in order to replace him, you have to get someone that's like a special goalkeeper. And if they did that, I'd be fine. I mean, I'd be happy if we got a special goalkeeper, but I'm very happy with Drake.
And there's also the fact that you've seen Drake kind of evolve some of his game since last season, right? He tried a little bit to play from the back. He made a little bit of mistakes and he started doing things more with his feet than he has. It's not his biggest asset. I still think he can improve on that. But as a shot stopper, the bang for buck that you get having Drake Callender on your team is perfect. I don't think we'll get a better player for the value that he is. And I know people are quick to jump on the fact that the goalkeeper needs to go and do better. And yeah, there are instances where he could have done slightly better in certain saves and stuff, but he's also saved us a fair few times. What was the game where he saved that penalty that I forget? I think
Columbus.
it was against Columbus. Yeah, there you go. And he's had his moments for sure. And we do say that maybe he could have done a little bit better against Atlanta, let in a few goals on his close side, but it's, I think, wishful thinking.
He gets beat near post a lot.
He does get beat near post.
More than you would expect for, because he's a good shot stopper, but I don't know why he gets beat near post so often.
His near post shot stopping has been something to want more of, but I think what you get from the value of money that you have Drake Callender for, it's perfect, and I wouldn't replace him. I'm very comfortable having him on our team for sure.
Scotty, I have a question for you, Scotty. You just said that you're okay with Drake, and you would only be okay with losing him if we get somebody better. That's how I feel about Tata. Tata, I'm 51% on Tata because I don't see, like, don't tell me Jim Curtin, because Jim Curtin's not going to come and coach Lionel Messi, Sergio Busquets, Luis Suarez. So who else fits the bill for this roster as it's currently constructed? Because outside of Xavi Hernandez, I don't see absolutely anyone that's available right now that I would say, you know what, come February, I hope he's on the sideline.
Listen, it's different with the players because you have all the roster restrictions that make it very difficult. But I agree with you. I just think that Inter Miami already knows who they want to be their next coach. Like, I think Messi and the front office have already talked about, here's some guys that we also are interested in as being a potential coach in the future. And so I think they have their list. And if they don't think any of them are better, he only got 2 red cards this year.
Right? Yeah, let's say he got a red this year. Yeah, he got 2. I thought it was just 1.
Yeah, and so I agree with you. If they don't have someone better that they think they can get, I'm fine with Tata, and I'm not going to riot if they keep Tata. But I think they probably have the next person in mind. And if they do, and they're just waiting for a reason to pull the trigger, I'm okay. I'm happy if they pull the trigger.
So, what do you think about
I don't have to go on. I would prefer if I don't have to do too many rants after the games next season, because I think I had a fair few this time around. So if Tata can help reduce that, I'll be all in for him. Sorry, Danny, you were saying.
No. I was just going to say that I think that when you look, I understand your point, so where you said that you felt like he never solidified a tactic, a formation throughout the season. I feel like it was because of all the injuries. Now, next year, he's probably going to face a lot of injuries also. But I feel like whatever ideologies he set on this roster, we are now 1 year in, and we're going to be in the second year of that with the same players. I feel things can only improve. Now, if you bring in a whole new a new manager with a new ideology, a new way of doing things, then you have the adjustment period again, especially, and not with the big guys, but with the roster fillers, the Kremakis, the Yannick Brights. And I think that that's a whole new process. If you bring somebody that, Mike on Tuesday said that he would have liked somebody like Pochettino. I was like, well, that means you can't have somebody like Drake, because if you have Pochettino, he likes to build out of the back with the keeper, right? He brings his center backs right next to his goalkeeper, and we built way out of the back, and that's how we build up with triangles. And it changes the roster setup. It changes so much that I feel like we just had 74 points in the regular season. If you bring me somebody better, I'm not going to complain, but I see the benefits to keeping him around for one more run.
That's absolutely valid. And I completely agree with a lot of your points, because I'm always for maintaining stability and consistency, right? And the best way to do that is to keep on the same tactics, the same way that you've been playing football and soccer. And I think you're right that when we go into the next season, a lot of these players know what their roles are, know what their responsibilities are. We've tested out Sergio Busquets in that back line as that quarterback role, as Chris mentioned, and we know what we're going to get out of it. So when we go into the next season, a lot of that is already going to be foundational. The issue is going to be if we move on a lot of our roster, and Inter Miami is actually notorious in bringing in a lot of new faces every offseason. So if we do turn our roster around a lot, then that adjustment period starts again. And is it worth the same level of adjustment that we're going to have to take with some of the new players we're bringing in? There's definitely pros and cons to both sides, and you're absolutely right. The level of consistency is going to improve next season. But I don't know if Tata Martino is going to change the way he coaches. He's 60. He's been in this game for so long. He knows what's right for him, right? So he's not going to change his timing of substitutions. He's not going to try and influence games like someone like Wilfred Nancy. He's going to stick to his guns. The question is, are we willing to gamble on that for another season and see if he's able to produce the results in knockout tournaments, especially?
Scotty?
Well, just going back to this question about ambition, you only have so long with Lionel Messi. You're not building into something. You already have it here. And so, well, normally I would say a coach is hugely influential in building a team and a culture. And you see that around the MLS, right? Columbus has that in a very defined way. Inter Miami's different. They are in an urgent situation to win as many trophies as possible while they have Lionel Messi, because as soon as that ends, it's a different world for Inter Miami, and whatever that looks like, we'll have those conversations then. But for now, you have Messi, you have Suarez, you have Alba, you have Busquets. You might get another, you might get another player, whether it's Di Maria or Neymar or whoever, right? It's win now, and you just saw your coach be unable to win now on 3 separate occasions. And again, it's not that he was unable to win the final because some player had an amazing game. He failed consistently early in tournaments compared to expectations. And I know we can argue for an hour on how much of it is his fault in those 2 losses earlier in the season, but it's urgent. And so if you want to have the highest ambition, you gotta be urgent about it.
But there's no guarantee. Like, I'm assuming you guys have watched football before Inter Miami came into existence. With other teams, you might root for other teams. Yeah. When have you ever been 100% happy with a manager?
That's Never. Fair.
And they don't always win the tournaments. So every coach and manager is going to have their faults. I think that, at least in my opinion, the fact that they had that regular season, to me at least, I think that earns them the benefit of the doubt. Unless you can guarantee me, you're going to bring me Pep. You're going to bring, I'll even take Xavi Hernandez just because his relationship with the guys, fine. But if you can't give me somebody like that, give them the other year, because every manager is going to have their faults. Every manager is going to fail, especially in the MLS. Every manager is going to fail. Look at Nancy. He got knocked out. He didn't even win 1 playoff game. Like they did much worse than us because they got swept out of the first round. And everybody was touting him as the greatest coach of all time in MLS history not too long ago. So because of that, that's my defense of Tata. I'm like, you know what? If he sticks around, give him another year.
Yeah, it's just Inter Miami needs a different type of coach than Columbus, right? Columbus is a system team. Yeah, 100%. They need to build into that system. Inter Miami is a player-driven team. You need to fit what you have on this roster. And so when you're talking about giving you a manager that's of a high renown or whatever, like, it's not that. You just need a guy that can come in and make good decisions during the game, make good decisions in game planning, and give you the best chance to win. And I'm not sure Tata Martino is that guy, but listen, he looks really good on paper, and you're probably right. It'll be very hard to get someone better on paper.
Could you imagine Jose Mourinho with these guys, him trashing the players in the post game? No way. No way. No way. Chris, I'm sorry. I was going to cut you off.
No. I wasn't going to say anything. I was just laughing at some of these comments here. Like,
okay. All right. So how do you think next year plays out, the off season? You both think that Tata is going to be back. You're both expecting 4 trophies next year.
5.
Okay. I mean, who do you think is going to be the biggest signing? Because I think we've covered the failure, the off season. Who do you think we're going to sign in the off season? I'll start with Chris. Chris, I'm sorry. Do you have any names? I'm sorry. I feel like you've been kind of quiet this episode.
I think we might re-sign Emerson Rodriguez. That's going to be my big signing.
All right. So let's forget about Chris. Scotty, who's going to be your biggest signing of the off season? Do you think we get Neymar, or do you think we're going to get a center back?
I think if Neymar becomes available, I think it's going to be Neymar, because I think Messi wants to bring him in.
I agree.
I think we're going to sign a big money left winger if it's not Neymar. I don't know. I don't have a name for you, but
you don't think Farias is gonna be that guy? I don't think so. Especially
I don't
we don't
think
know where he's gonna be health wise.
I don't think Robert Taylor's going to be back, and I don't think Diego Gomez is not going to be back. So you need two left wingers, and I think Farias will be the understudy and will play a lot, but you just can't trust him to play every single game after an ACL injury. So I think they're going to sign a big left winger.
And before you answer, Sora and Danny, before we read Justin's freaking statistical attack here, to answer seriously, right? Because you just mentioned about signing a center back or a defender. Sergio Ramos would be ideal, I guess, but like, there's no way that we as an MLS team are going to throw tons of money at a defender. Well, I mean, not just him, but just I don't feel like we're going to be able to. Not that we're not going to be able to, but I don't think that it's going to be worth to sign someone for big money to play such a sort of like a. I mean, you know that the eyes face up at the top, the striker, winger, get a center attacking midfielder. Nobody's going to dump big money on any center backs. So I agree with Scotty. I think in reality, we're probably going to have to go after Neymar or some sort of a big winger.
Can I attack Justin real quick? Just
sure.
So Justin knows.
Just with
winning percentage wise, Tata has a better winning percentage in the MLS. So I just wanted to put that out there for all you Nancy lovers.
Tata. Wilfred Nancy's also got 3 losses in 5 games against Inter Miami. So his record against the Hands isn't very good either.
And this past playoff run, he also didn't win a game. So just want to put that out there also.
Good job, Justin.
Yeah.
And he won coach of the season, man. What's that about?
Yeah. So, what do you think this offseason? Do you think we got a big signing, and where? What position or player?
I agree with Chris and Scotty to an extent that I don't think it's going to be a defensive signing. I think the playbook in defense is going to be very similar. Sign someone from South America who's solid, stable, good, but not, a superstar level signing in center back or defense. I would agree with Scotty on Neymar, but I don't want to copy him. So I'm going to go with a different name, slightly more crazy. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. I think Paul Pogba. That'd be an interesting one. We need to, think about the possibility of it.
I hadn't even considered that.
There's definitely been signs. I don't know what I feel about it. I'm not saying that we should bring him in, but just to throw out a different name, man. Everyone knows Neymar is going to be on the radar. Everyone knows that's something we're looking at. But what about Paul Pogba, man? If he comes in, are you going to be happy about it? Are you not? What do you think how it's going to affect our midfield acquisition? Interesting questions.
I think Pogba fell off once he went to Manchester United.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This guy was just complaining about Neymar's injury record, and now he's going to talk about Paul Pogba.
Hey, listen. Paul Pogba on his day is the best player, best midfielder that this generation has ever seen. The problem is I can count on my one hand how many good days he's had as a footballer. So it's not that many, and it's going to be inconsistent. But if he's
when he was playing in Italy,
he was so good.
He was so good in Italy.
Again, he hasn't played in 18 months, so we don't know what we get out of him. But another player that
maybe we get him for a TAM deal.
Maybe
I'll take him for a TAM. Give me everybody's coming for a TAM at this point.
What about you, Danny? Who do you like as the big signing?
Well, I've always said that I think 2026 Neymar is going to be here for the new stadium. But with all these rumors coming around about his contract getting terminated, I think there's a real possibility it happens earlier. I would have bet my house 2026 he's going to open the new stadium with Messi. But like these rumors about his contract ending and all that, it really has me believing that it might happen right now. And I think that's going to be the big move, right? Like right now, everybody's down, right? The fan base is really down on the exit. How do you prop them back up? Bring the biggest name over the last, decade and a half. It's been Messi, Ronaldo, and then right under, it's always been Neymar. It's been those 3 names for the last decade and a half. That's how you bring the fan base back to being excited and looking forward to next season. That's how you bring back Tata without people complaining. You cover it up with Neymar. And I'm starting to think that maybe it does happen this offseason. Now, what that means for us defensively, I am scared. But
and used car Sanlehi has used car salesman Sanlehi has a good relationship with him. So
he went and he lived in Brazil for a year with Neymar to make sure that he got him to Barcelona. That is to me, that's the only reason we got him.
Yeah.
Very true. Can I throw you guys a couple because
Go for it.
we just did our off-season podcast a couple hours ago, so some of these things are fresh on our mind. Julian Gressel and Matthias Rojas feel like they're going to struggle to be on this roster together in a way that fits, because I think their best position for both of them is that right wing spot. There's time when Messi's not going to be available. You know, he's going to miss a couple games for rest. He's going to be on international duty, but for both of them, it feels hard to fit them comfortably into this roster. Neither of them's excellent in the midfield. Do you think there's any chance that one of them gets moved this offseason?
I've unfortunately thought about Gressel, and not because I want him to get moved. I was a big Gressel hater for the first part of the season. I wore my "I'm sorry, Gressel" shirt. I went on his podcast. I am over that. I think that I like Gressel on team as a right winger, but for his sake and the fact that I don't think he's going to get much play now if everybody's healthy, I think that Gressel might end up being moved. And then Solana saying Rojas loan will be done, maybe, but
he's got an option. He's got an option for next year.
Does he? So he has to opt in. So I think if one of them moves, I think it's going to be Gressel.
I think he still has legs, and I think the point that you mentioned, Danny, it's at right wing he was solid. Like we mentioned on our show a couple times, if Messi wasn't on our team and we had Gressel at right wing, everyone would be pretty happy with him and his performance.
No, we wouldn't be happy about that, but I think that it would be
acceptable.
Yeah, we'd have a good right wing.
And so him at midfield here, I think it's not going to serve as much of a purpose, and I think he's going to have better success elsewhere. So
I kind of like Gressel over Rojas in this backup to Messi role, though, because when Messi's not on the field, oftentimes we play much deeper with a little bit of high pressing early in the game, but then we sit really deep, play very defensive, and then try and hit on the counter. And I think that actually suits Julian Gressel a little bit better than it does Matthias Rojas. So when you're talking about trying to integrate into a full 11 that includes Messi and Suarez and all them, maybe Matthias Rojas is the guy. When you're talking about backing up Messi, I kind of like Julian Gressel better. But it feels weird to me that they're both going to be on this roster next year, just how this year went.
Could we get Alejandro Pozuelo back?
I wish.
So.
I wish.
Where is he now? Did he go to Saudi? I know he left Turkey.
I think he went to a Saudi league, and then all of a sudden, I don't know where he is at this moment. I know he's not on FIFA because I looked for his card, so he's for sure not on FIFA.
He's in Al Fayha. So yeah, he's in Saudi.
Yeah, so
great player, man. What an amazing time that was.
Yeah, that was a fun half season. He's the one that helped end Higuain's career on a high note.
I know.
He was the reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 16 goals in 16 games, something crazy like that.
Yeah, that was
amazing.
fun.
Yeah. What about the center backs though, guys? Do you think? I mean, they're gonna move Christoph on. They're probably gonna move Frede on, so they'll have room and money to replace them. Do you think they're gonna go in with Martinez and Aviles as the top two guys, or do you think they're gonna go out and get two guys that they think can start over them, or maybe one in a depth piece? How do you think they're gonna play that situation?
I actually think that they're going to keep those two, and I think that Ian Frey, since he didn't suffer as big of an injury with the ACL, it was the MCL this time. I feel like Frey could be an option to work. But he doesn't.
Tata never plays him at center back.
He has. I mean, look, he played him at center defensive midfielder. Played him at right back. He played David Ruiz at right back. How come nobody's thought about David Ruiz at right back? He didn't play too bad at right back. I mean, it wasn't the best, right? I mean, but like
it was really good when we didn't have a right back on the roster.
Even if we don't have a right back on the roster, I don't think I want to see David Ruiz as a right back ever again. We also have Noah Allen, who's come up as a center back, so that's another option.
Look, I like Noah Allen at center back, and the preseason, I remember we were up in arms like, what the hell's he doing at center back? And by the 5th preseason game, we're like, oh man, this guy, he's really coming on. We waited towards the end of the season to see it consistently, but I think he is a good depth piece at center back. I think Toto Avila stays. I like Toto Aviles. As much as people hate him for his yellow cards and his stupidity, I feel like I see moments of brilliance. I'm like, this kid could be a stud. He just gotta get his head right. And he's only like 20 years old. So I wouldn't want to give up on him. I know a lot of people have, but at 20, I wouldn't give up on him. I like Toto. I think he's gonna stay. David Martinez, I think he would be a good backup. I think we need a new left center back.
Yeah, I think they'll both be back, but it's a matter of, do you get a guy that's going to be at the top of the room? It's going to be the starter and push those guys down a notch, or do you get backups for those so you have a little bit of depth? Because we saw this year.
I think that I would have David Martinez as the backup, and Dennis Lopez says he can't start here. This is the MLS. He can start here.
Sailor could play like 8 minutes, 10 minutes.
No, he can't.
No,
Sailor's
no.
gone.
What do you mean? No, he can't.
No, he's
We
gone.
could probably go get Damian Lowe back. He could play like 7 minutes.
Damian Lowe played well in Philly.
Yeah, Damian Lowe's okay, man. He's not bad for your fourth center back, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we could wrap it up with this. Sor, I'll start with you. Prediction for next season. Way too early prediction. Do you think we figure this out?
Yeah, I think we win that MLS Cup, man. I know Lionel Messi has always been up against the wall. Thank you. Has always been up against the wall throughout his career, man. Everyone counted him out when it comes to his international career. These guys have been in the trenches. They know what the worst games are about. They know what the best games are about. When it matters, I think this time around, they fail to grasp how important the playoffs actually are in the MLS and what the value of playoffs is here and what it means. I think they won't make the same mistake next time around. They're going to be ready and they're going to be hungry. And I think it's okay if we don't finish number one in the Supporter Shield standings. It's fine if we don't break the record again. This time they want to go for that playoffs, and I think we win the MLS Cup.
And so just to that point, to add to what you just said, I do believe that second game in Atlanta, they didn't take it as seriously as they should have because they knew they could have played a third game and they didn't go out with that killer mentality. And I really do believe that. Really
and even Jordi Alba's comments afterwards when he spoke about the format of the playoffs and all that. Yeah. You have what it's in front of you, and that's what you got. You have the cards that were dealt to you. You have to play them, right? So I think next time when they go in, they're going to be a lot more locked in. And I do think Tata, Martino, in or out, we're going to figure our shit out. So it's going to be fine. Yeah. Always believe our team, man.
I love that.
Scotty. Let's see if Scotty's about to turn and burn.
I have us winning 2 trophies. I have us winning the... Yeah, I know. You're not going to like what I have to say either. I think we're going to win the Leagues Cup, and I think here's a hot take for you. I think Inter Miami's going to win the U.S. Open Cup next year.
Ah, you got Danny right where it hurts.
Wow. The U.S. Open Cup. Oh, my God.
Here's my hot take prediction. I think that Apple TV is going to buy the rights to the U.S. Open Cup, the television rights.
That might improve it.
I think that was ultimately the reason why so many teams left this past year, and I think we'll be back in it next year. I could see Inter Miami and Seattle being given sort of leniency on that because they're in the Club World Cup. I think every other team is probably going to be in the U.S. Open Cup this year, and I think Inter Miami's backups are going to take us all the way to the semifinals, and then Messi's going to win it this year for us. I would love to say more, but until you see what the coaching situation looks like, I'm struggling to say we're going to win the 2 that I really want, which are MLS Cup and the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
I do think Inter Miami got caught with their pants down because if they were thinking of making any type of moves, they thought that they would have to make these decisions in December. Yeah. I think all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, like we got to make decisions before November 27th. So yeah, it's a rough situation. Chris, I guess I'll throw it to you but before any predictions for next year?
No, man. Let me tell you, I'm with Soar. We're going all the way. We're winning like as much hardware and trophies as possible. I mean, Scotty came out with a bold prediction: U.S. Open Cup, baby.
I know we're not even going to play in it, and we're going to win it. I love it.
Yeah.
And listen, when I say everything, I mean the Club World Cup as well. We're winning that shit as well.
Wow.
We're winning it
all.
I draw the line somewhere. I draw the line.
Oh man, I love it, Sword. What I do like is that I think that this Atlanta series gave us a little juice for those Atlanta Miami games. And I really do hope that at some point we play them, whether it be Leagues Cup, Open Cup, MLS playoffs. I think it's going to be really fun, what we got going here with Atlanta. All right. Scotty, Sor, I appreciate you. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us, jumping on with us. Please, I said it one time, but you guys let everybody know where they could find you.
Yeah, guys, Dry Pink Dialogue on YouTube, on Twitter and all that stuff. You can find us. That's my handle on the screen. That's Sor's handle with a little @ in front of it. But we'd love to interact with you guys. We do the pregame shows, which we think is unique and we think really gets us ready for the game, lets us get a little nerves out. I know we're not, getting ready for that anytime soon, but we'd appreciate having you. And thank you guys for giving us the platform and, chatting with us.
For sure. Make sure that you go ahead, Drive Pink Dialogue. Make sure that you follow them on I blanked here. YouTube. I'm sorry. I just blanked. I don't know why I blanked that bad. On YouTube and on the Twitter accounts, they're awesome. They're an awesome follow. They had that awesome stat that I keep bringing it up every show I've been on MLS Moves. Everywhere I go, I'm like, Drive Pink Dialogue. Put this stat out that we allowed 1 goal when Yannick Bright was playing, 5 when he wasn't. And I'm like, Drive Pink Dialogue. So make sure that you follow them. They are awesome statistically on the show, all that other stuff. So make sure that you give them the time. And again, we hope to keep having other podcasts on throughout the off season. Like I said, we reached out to Peter Brown, Uncle Ed. I'm going to reach out to Franco later on. We reached out to the Hair on Heads. And we hope that they hit us back and we can get everybody on, because it's always a fun time talking with other Drive Pink Inter Miami content creators. And if you are not ready to go to bed and you like the orange round ball, we're going to have Battered Heat fans going on in 5 minutes, give or take. So go ahead and Battered Heat fans, if you want to talk some round orange ball. Chris, any final words?
I want to also include this. Watch the interview with Yannick Bright, guys, because Danny doesn't want to have any players on. So if you do want to watch a good interview with Yannick Bright, go ahead and check that out. That was a really good. That was a really good play.
I know. I forgot who it was. Somebody threw some shade. They're like, "Oh yeah, Battered Heron's never had a player on." I think it's awesome that you guys had any break. I hate player interviews. So
yeah,
even though Chris keeps asking for them, I'm like, I don't like them. So I know like that I'm in the minority. I know
you're in the super minority. Like,
I know. I because I feel like they can't just come out and open up, because they have to be careful with what they say. So I'd rather a retired player. Give me a retired player. Give me it all, because they have more fun. But I feel like when it's like, I don't know. I feel like you're gonna get the coach reserve. Yeah.
Well, if you ever decide to do it, I would suggest just treating him like a professional soccer player instead of like an Inter Miami player. One of the things we did was have him talk us through a moment he had on the pitch and the film room and stuff from a professional perspective. So it wasn't about like, oh, what's Messi like, and stuff like that, where he has to be careful.
No, I know. I get it, but like Julian Gressel, when I went on his show, I felt like how do I not say like, hey, maybe you can come on ours? Like I felt like I had to say it. And he was nice. And then Chris is like, let's get him on. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun.
We'll see.
And if anything, Solana saying that him and I can just take over the show while you go to Orlando and put on a purple jersey.
Last thing, guys, I just wanted to say, when I was first into Inter Miami a couple years ago, I looked for a podcast, and you guys were the first one I found, and you guys helped me deepen my fandom of Inter Miami. So I really appreciate you guys, and thank you for that. I appreciate it.
That's awesome.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, man. We've been doing it for a little while. Not as long as Peter and Peter Brown and Dunkel, but we've been doing it for a while, and we just hope to entertain and keep bringing guests on so we can spread the word, because there's a lot of great content creators for Inter Miami. And then for the MLS also, if anybody's interested in the MLS, we're doing Battered MLS fans also, and we always have a panel of 4 or 5 guests jumping on, and we're trying to spread the word of the MLS and grow the game. So content creator wise, obviously that's all we can do. So all right, thank you guys again. Chris, fuck you. For those of you in audio, we appreciate you listening all the way to the end. Please leave us 5 stars, comment, review, all that good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching all the way to the end. Please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. And as always, for the chat, you guys are the best part of the show. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us for the last hour and 20 minutes. And we'll be back on Monday, probably. Hopefully, I'll leave that for another time. But if you are, like I said, if you're bored and you want to hear some round orange ball, join us in the Battered Heat fans in about 5 minutes. So until the next one, have a good one.